Hi everybody, my name is Clint Heffern and this is my EDL 850 Module 12 case study. So first off, section 1 to summarize, this is what we know, the facts. St. Regis School is a rural school. It's about 25 miles from the nearest large city. We do have a school that serves grades K through 8, but after 8th grade, students must travel by bus to a nearby high school in the city, which is about 25 miles away. So our school serves K through 8, which is about 420 students. There's 2 teachers per grade level, and we have 2 total special ed teachers. We also have 2 major fundraisers each year that raise money for teachers for supplies and resources like the new software program that we will be talking about in this case study. Some people, I am Mr. Sample, the principal that's at St. Regis. And I've been there for 3 years. Mrs. Lynn is the main person we're dealing with. She's the library teacher or library media specialist and also the computer lab teacher. Continuing with section 1, summarizing, we've got 20 new computers in the computer lab that Mrs. Lynn oversees. Me, Mr. Sample, and Mrs. Lynn have worked together to purchase a new software programs for those 20 computers that are in the computer lab. So many of the teachers use the lab and the software. They love the programs, and they've incorporated the computer lab into their daily course instruction. So they really are pleased with this and really like it. Several teachers have asked Mrs. Lynn if they could utilize the new software in their classrooms, in their specific individual classrooms. Mrs. Lynn thought that was a good idea, and so teachers have actually reached out to Mrs. Lynn and asking if she could copy the software programs onto CDs for them. Mrs. Lynn, again, thought it was a good idea and would save the school money. She ordered blank CDs, made copies of the software program, and then distributed them, gave them to the teachers. So some teachers liked it, thought it was a good idea. Mrs. Brandon, who is a new teacher to St. Regis this year, but she does have 3 years of experience elsewhere, she was very concerned that these copied CDs violated copyright laws. She said at her old school, the superintendent was very serious about this, and she was worried that we were breaking the law with these copied CDs. So Mrs. Brandon expresses her concerns to Mrs. Lynn, and basically they didn't have a really good conversation. Didn't really go very well. So at the end of the day, Mrs. Brandon comes to me, the principal, Mr. Sample, and expresses her concerns to me and tells me what's going on and that she thinks we're breaking the law. I inform her this is the first time I've been made aware of this, and yes, this is a serious issue, but I didn't know anything else prior to this. So the next day, I, Mr. Sample, go to see Mrs. Lynn and ask her about the CDs. And basically, Mrs. Lynn does not deny it. She says, yes, I copied the CDs because I thought it'd save the school money, and we're a rural school. We need to save the school money. I inform her, hey, there's copyright laws. We need to stop copying CDs and collect all the ones that we have copied and distributed, and make sure we dispose of them. And Mrs. Lynn is very frustrated. She said, nobody's going to find out, and even the PTA president had volunteered yesterday in helping her make the copied CDs, and she was very pleased by the efforts to save money for the school. So that's basically what we know, the facts. Section 2, what are the legal and ethical issues? As far as we know, these are the legal and ethical issues with the information that we have right now. Could these change as we find out different or more information? Certainly, but this is what we know as of right now. First off, nobody was harmed, harassed, or discriminated against. There's not been a breach of contract. The situation does, yes, violate copyright laws, just as I had informed Mrs. Lynn. But Mrs. Lynn did this in good intentions to save the school money, but it still is a violation of copyright laws. And that could have serious and expensive repercussions if this situation was exposed or not handled properly by myself in dealing with this situation. So it could be a very serious legal situation, and we have a very serious legal issue. But right now, it was all done in good intent. We just need to address it the right way. Section 3, synthesize. This is a summary of the situation in one sentence. So, Mrs. Lynn, the library computer lab teacher, was asked by teachers to copy new software programs so that teachers could also utilize the programs in their classrooms. So she did copy the new software onto CDs and distribute those CDs to teachers, therefore violating copyright laws, but did it unknowingly and in good intent to save the school money. Section 4, synthesizing the facts. So placing this into 3 categories. Who are the people involved with this? Mr. Sample, Mr. Sample, the principal at St. Regis for the past 3 years. Mrs. Lynn is the main person we're working with. She's a library media specialist, computer lab teacher. There's Mrs. Brandon, who is a new teacher to St. Regis, a third grade teacher, but she does have 3 years experience elsewhere. Mrs. Williams, who is the other third grade teacher with Mrs. Brandon, but she's been at St. Regis for a while now, and she did accept CDs, copied CDs from Mrs. Lynn. And then Mrs. Evans is briefly mentioned as being the PTA president, who basically helped Mrs. Lynn copy the CDs and approved it, said, hey, this is a good thing, we're saving the school money. So the place, like I said earlier, St. Regis School, it's a K through 8 school, 420 students. It's a small rural school, about 25 minutes from the nearest big city, but it is rural. They have 2 major fundraisers each year to help raise money for additional supplies, school resources, and for the school in general. The program that we're dealing with, again, a K through 8 school, not a high school. We have a new computer lab of 20 computers with new software for the next 2 years for those computers in the computer lab. And then we have now copied that software onto individual discs. And the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade teachers have received copies of those CDs. That's what we know right now. Review and prioritize section 5. This is what we know with the information that we have. This situation and my response as principal could have serious repercussions, serious consequences for the school, the district, Mrs. Lynn and her job, and even myself and my job. But it could be especially damaging to stakeholders in the community, but especially to the kids, because, say for instance, we, with this whole situation, we have a bad public scene, or it creates some big legal attention, and maybe a donor in the area who's a big donor to the school, and we rely for a lot of money. Maybe they don't like the way this is all handled, and they do not donate to the school anymore. So that could affect the kids with, what type of, are we getting new computers? Are we getting new software? Which is going to hurt the kids. So it could be damaging to stakeholders. It could be damaging to other PTA members, other teachers, or parents that do have a stake in the school. But it's especially damaging to the kids, because if there are serious legal fees or damages, it could set the school back in a large way, which would hurt all stakeholders, but it would especially hurt the kids. So not all relevant stakeholders have been consulted. We have not consulted superintendent, if my assistant principal, and even we could get a lawyer involved and just maybe ask their opinion or what we should do. So not all relevant stakeholders have been consulted, and I could still learn more from my superintendent or a lawyer, but I still do have enough information to make a decision in my position. So getting to that decision, what are some potential options? First off, number 1, we could do nothing. Make no decision, do nothing, let Mrs. Lynn continue to copy CDs of the software and distribute them to teachers, saving the school money, but we are knowingly breaking the law. So basically do nothing, make no decision. That's number 1. Number 2 is we could fire Mrs. Lynn. We could put all the blame on her. She broke the law, get rid of her, completely blame Mrs. Lynn. Number 3, we could allow the already copied CDs to stay with the teachers in the classrooms, but basically say, hey, we're not going to make any more copies of the software. And then number 4, the last option, we could talk to Mrs. Lynn and say, hey, I know this is done of good intent, but it is illegal. We need to collect all of the CDs from the teachers that you made and gave them and dispose of them, not make any more copies, and make sure we teach others and take this opportunity to inform others that, hey, there are copyright laws. This is what we can and cannot do. So getting into section 7, evaluating those options. So here's our 4 options that I just mentioned. What are the pros and cons to each of those options? With number 1, the pros to doing nothing is we don't have to confront Mrs. Lynn. We don't have to have maybe some hard conversations, and it's going to save the school a lot of money. And we'll have unlimited access to that software, but we're breaking the law, which is going into the cons. We are knowingly breaking the law, which could cost us serious money, be a major lawsuit, and it could cost people jobs. So Mrs. Lynn's job, my job, it could cost people's jobs if it is discovered. So there are some major cons to that. Number 2, we could fire Mrs. Lynn and completely blame her. Some pros to that is it gives us a scapegoat. It gives us someone to blame, kind of covers the school and says, hey, this is Mrs. Lynn's fault, not the school's fault, and sets a tone to other teachers, hey, do not break the law or you will be fired. The cons to that is it's unfair to Mrs. Lynn. She did this with good intentions, trying to help the school, save the school money, and so I would not morally or ethically be okay with firing Mrs. Lynn That's a major con to me. Number 3, allow the already copied CDs to stay with teachers in their classrooms, but not make any new copies of the software. So this would still save the school some money and get to use the software, and it's kind of less work. Is from my perspective. We're just kind of going to do nothing again. We're not going to take those CDs away. We're not going to let them make any more, but we're not going to take them away. So there's not really a lot of work involved there. The cons of that is we're still breaking the law. We're not really responding to the situation, which is my response as principal is basically allowing this, accepting this, which is where I think that's putting my job in jeopardy here. Then number 4, the pros. To talking to Mrs. Lynn, say, hey, this is done out of good intent, but it is illegal. Let's collect all the copies, dispose of them, and not make any more. The pros to that are we take proper legal action, we inform others of copyright laws, and morally, I think that's the right thing to do. We don't avoid this situation, we address it. It may create some tough conversations with Mrs. Lynn or some parents, and we're not saving the school money that we could save. There's a lot of work involved with this, but so those are some of the cons, but I still think it's morally and ethically the right thing to do. Section 8, what's the best option? I'm going to flip back here one last time. I think number 4 is obviously clearly the best option. So number 4 is right here at the top. Let's discuss with Mrs. Lynn. This is done of good intent, but it is illegal. Let's collect all of the copies of the CDs, dispose of them, not make any more copies, and let's get together our staff, maybe even come up with a new rule on copyright laws for a district, but let's inform people this is illegal and cannot take place. So it shows we take these issues very seriously. We will not violate the law, and while at the same time acknowledges that Mrs. Lynn, this is a mistake. She did this out of good intent, trying to save the school money, so we're not going to force her to lose her position because she was trying to help the school. So it also gives us a good opportunity to discuss with staff laws, and especially copyright infringement, but what are the laws and how it applies to us. It gives us a great opportunity to discuss and say, this is clearly what you can and cannot do. Make sure you're not breaking those rules. I would still like to get my superintendent and assistant principal's opinion on the matter and see what they have to say to make sure we are getting all stakeholders' input. And so how are we going to implement that decision? Section 9, this is exactly what we are going to do. First, let's get all stakeholders involved. Let's meet with my superintendent, my assistant principal, and discuss the situation with them and get their input. Second, let's talk with Mrs. Lynn again, ensure her we need to get all the copies, remove, not copy anymore, emphasize again the seriousness of these laws and the repercussions that they can have. Let's collect all the CDs, dispose of them, and then let's call a meeting, discuss with our staff, maybe at the next faculty meeting or professional development time, the seriousness of these laws, how they apply to us, and emphasizing that we need to follow all these laws. And at the same time, I think we should create in that meeting, make sure we have a district policy on the seriousness of copyright laws, and if a teacher or a faculty member breaks it, what is going to happen. So let's get that policy completely squared away. These are some of the questions that we were supposed to address where we saw fit. So how can principals balance support from parents with interference with school operations? These all kind of connect with one big theme to me. So what school policies need to be developed to prevent this situation in the future? I think, like I just mentioned, let's call together a big meeting, not only with faculty, but since this is a rural, small community, let's inform like the PTA, the parents, hey, there are certain laws and regulations and policies that we have to abide by. And I know we could be saving money by going against these laws or going underneath them, but let's inform the PTA as well. We need to be sure we are following all the proper procedures and laws. And then how do you monitor that? Let's make sure we have that policy. Like I previously just mentioned a little bit, we have a policy for copyright, and we are telling all our teachers, all our staff, all our parent-teacher association members every year, hey, these are the laws, don't break them or this will happen. So that's how we monitor it. We're going to do it every year. We're going to teach it, and we're going to look into it. And then how do you use technology to improve quality and efficiency of operations? So acquiring new equipment and technology and developing a plan for that. I like the plan for new 2-year software, but like I said, we need to have a district policy in place. These are the rules, these are the laws, we will follow them, and if it is not followed, here is what is going to happen. So we need to get that district policy summed up. Thank you, guys.